leaders should understand that loyalty, again, I'll say it many, many times,
Yes,
is not a
please do.
program. So
No.
everybody says we want loyalty, and I say, well, what do you mean we want loyalty? We want a loyalty program. I say, but hang on a second. A program is a structure. It's a tool, it's a strategy to drive an outcome called loyalty. So first, let's get naming right, because I know everyone uses it's almost the lazy way of saying loyalty programs. They say loyalty. And I know I'm very passionate about it, and I might turn a couple of people away, but that's the South African, and I'm sure, Debbie, you get that as well.
I get that, yes.
So first of all, if we're talking about programs now, the actual formal overt structure, let's talk about loyalty programs. The shifts are that brands and businesses that I deal with, and clearly I'm lucky enough to deal with some, but not all, and not necessarily all the big ones, but I'm getting a sense that they're getting much more clear on the why. Why a program? It's not a cost. In fact, another quick story for you and your listeners.
Yes, please.
I was in a boardroom recently with a CEO asking me about loyalty programs, a very big business, and they were sort of just picking my brain. And in the end, the CEO said, well, I guess it's a cost of doing business. To which I said, with all due respect, don't do it. And there was dead silence. Because if you see it as a cost, and not a return on an asset, which is your customer and or your engagement and or your the people that fundamentally bring you the income. If you don't see it as a return on that investment and only as a cost, it won't last until Christmas.
No.
The whole framing that I'm seeing a lot of is changing the mindset around it not being a cost, but being an investment, and it's a return that you get.
Welcome to the Purpose-Led CEO podcast. Hi, I'm Debbie. I host a short-form interview series where we spotlight global leaders who are building thriving, purpose-driven companies. And in just 10 minutes, we'll uncover powerful insights from our guests' leadership journey, something that inspires their team and delivers real results. Let's dive in.
Welcome to our guest today, Adam Posner, the Point of Loyalty. I'm going to just do a quick introduction into Adam, who's the founder of Point of Loyalty, the creator of triple bottom line of loyalty program success, the creator of Jolty Moments of Magic, advisor. He also advises brands around profitable and desirable loyalty programs. Adam is also the author for Love or Money, where he's commissioned 18 independent consumer research studies across Australasia. And that's on customer loyalty and loyalty programs. Adam's also guided major brands since 2007, and he's a speaker of the loyalty and loyalty programs. And last but not least, the founder of Vlogcast. What's the point of loyalty? Welcome, Adam. Great
Debbie,
to have you
pleasure.
on the Purpose-Led CEO. Goodness. Adam, today, so you're based in Australia currently. And how long have you been in Australia?
38 years now, Debbie, from the same country as you, South Africa originally. So, and I also had a couple of years in New Zealand. So I got to be both an All Blacks, a Wallaby, and a Springbok all at the same time.
At least you've kept it in the Southern Hemisphere, so that's fantastic. Well, Adam, I just want to delve into your personal journey. And if you could just share the journey that led you into loyalty and what keeps you so passionate about it.
Two very important questions. Maybe I'll go back to, I was thinking about my history not long ago, and I realized that my first experience of loyalty came with a uniform and a command. And why I say that, I'm sure you'll get it when I say I was in the South African Air Force. There's a conscription back in the day. And I thought of loyalty there was not negotiable. It was an order that you live by, unfortunately. And then if I fast forward to today's world, I've been living and loving customer loyalty and loyalty programs formally since 2007. And I didn't realize even before that, I started something called Scratch and Save in the early 90s, which I didn't realize was a loyalty program, but was like a shopping, a frequent shopping program that I devised. Yeah. So I would walk the streets here in Melbourne and get retailers to join, and then I would distribute the Scratch and Save card to consumers, and they'd come in and scratch and save. And I didn't realize that was a loyalty program, but a little bit more analog than digital.
Yes, yes. Oh my goodness. And you just started that. And how did that go?
Yeah,
Where did you take
fascinating.
that?
Yeah, look, it was hard work. I think I wore down a lot of shoe leather and a lot of rejection. But you know what they say about
Hmm.
rejection? It's one step closer to acceptance.
Yes,
So
love that.
you got to knock on the door and say, "Hey, I've got this great way of bringing you new customers. Do you want it?" It was like selling advertising, essentially, but it was
Yes,
to direct mail, direct marketing in those days.
yes.
So I learned a lot. I learned a lot about in those days. The retailer would say to me, "Well, when these people come in, how will I get them back again?" Well, then build a little, spreadsheet in those days, and so.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the fundamentals I learned. I'm glad you asked this question because I didn't realize what the basics were back there, and that you can use in today's world.
Yeah. I mean, and actually, Adam, I know you say, little spreadsheet. I think there's so many companies out there that are still doing that. They haven't quite got it. How do I get the customer back? Not realizing that it's far more expensive to try and acquire a new customer than actually fish where the fish are and keep your existing customers. That's always interesting. And
Yeah,
you've
no,
just
that's
continued to
fundamental.
be passionate about loyalty throughout the year. And I mean, obviously, you've just grown it with being the author of 19 books. And you literally are the loyalty guru in Australia. You really are, because I've been following you for a while. And wherever anything loyalty is in Australia, your name keeps on popping up as the go-to person. So your IP in that area is amazing. But as I say, if that's the foundation that you had since 2007, knocking on the doors, doing the hard yard, wearing your shoes soles out, that's key, because that's actually knowing, that's walking in the steps of your customers actually, and understanding what steps they're walking through. Very
No, I love
interesting.
your analogy. You're right. I'll just do a little quick correction. It's not the 19 books is 18 research studies, three
Right, sorry,
books,
yes.
three actual
Right.
books. That's okay, just so that I
Well,
don't want
that's
people to
still
think
very
I've written
impressive. Yes,
19 books,
apologies.
but three books. One was on direct marketing, one was on
Yes.
loyalty programs, and one was a random book called Making Price Irrelevant, which is all about B2B. But anyway, those are separate to I suppose my passion now is, as you say, loyalty and loyalty programs from the
Yes.
consumer's perspective.
Mm. Thank you for that correction.
It's
Still
okay.
very impressive, but thank you. And I want to look at weaving leadership, purpose, and loyalty together, because I mean
Hmm.
they correlate so fundamentally. Um, how do you what are your thoughts around loyalty and purpose and the connection? But if you look at many companies will say customer is important and it's on the wall and it is really, really important for ROI. They always say customer first, but we know from an ROI perspective, it's not always the case. They've got to get the numbers in, but we so often forget to connect the loyalty and then the purpose of the company and the passion that you instill within your staff and your team. So first of all, how are loyalty and purpose connected in your eyes? And then secondly, if we can a business truly build loyalty without a clear sense of purpose? I've asked them as two separate, but I mean, they are so interconnected.
Wow. I think it's a very pertinent question in the sense that I always go back one step and say, well, what is loyalty?
Mm,
And so first the organizational and every brand or business is different, as you know, Debbie. I've heard your
mm,
background, and whether you're in grocery or airports or a fast moving consumer good or
mm.
automotive, whatever the category in, it's really important to understand what loyalty means internally, but mostly from your customer's point of view. So
Yes.
I always start off with with brands and businesses is explaining to them loyalty is not a program. So loyalty is an outcome, which I've been studying for all these years from a consumer's perspective. So loyalty is based on behavior, belief, and belonging. So
Right.
I'll just dissect them because purpose belongs to one of those, and maybe you'll guess which one in a second. But behavior and loyalty is essentially a transactional connection. People buy stuff more often, spend a lot over the longer term. That's the money side, right? Transactional
Mhm.
loyalty. Belief loyalty goes much deeper. It goes into the emotional connection to the brand or business. I love the brand. I trust the brand. I'll tell my friends and family about the brand. So it's much more of a
Mhm.
emotional connection. And the new B that I've added to my three Bs is belonging loyalty, which is the sense of belonging. And here it comes, Debbie, identifying with the brand's purpose and
Yes.
wanting to be part of the community of the brand offers where relevant. Not every
Right.
brand can build a community, but many
No.
want to. So behavior, belief, and belonging. So getting really clear on what is loyalty, and then where does, and I'm, a solopreneur. I'm not a big business, but
Yes.
I lead from the fact of, understanding my purpose is every day in serving my community. But you work with and have worked with many big brands, and understanding what their purpose is critical. It
Yes.
reminds me of a great story here in Australia. There's a ladies' fashion brand called LSKD. I'm not sure if you've heard of it,
Yes,
LSKD.
I have.
And you should read their mission, vision, values, their purpose. They're so clear. It's so clear that they want to make their community 1% better every day. And it's very fresh in my mind because
Mm,
I've just chatted with someone from there. But back to your question on purpose. So when you're so clear of who you are and what you stand for, well, then you'll attract the community that wants to be part of that, and the
yes.
community meaning the customer. So what comes first? I think purpose comes first. If you can clearly articulate it,
Mm-hmm.
live and breathe it with your team, and then articulate that back to your community, your customer, so that then you get the commercial gains, because purpose first, profit second. Profit comes from
Yes,
that. So
it does. It
I don't know if I've
does.
answered your question, but
No, you have, because it is. It's all about that passion as well. No, absolutely. No, you have. Thank you. Thank you. And then at a more closer to home in Australia, where you are now, what are you seeing? What is shifting in Australia? What shifts are you seeing in Australia and then globally? Because I know you deal a lot with a lot of global companies as well, around leaders embracing loyalty differently. Because where I've worked and been in corporate, it's actually been a difficult job often within a company to get the steering committee embracing loyalty, because they do see it as a program.
yeah,
As you mentioned, it's not a program, but they do see it as a program. They see there's a lot of cost invariably that people have to, put a big amount of money involved, because obviously you've got IT, you've got some investment there. Doesn't always have to be, but what shifts are you seeing, if any, in Australia and globally around loyalty, sorry, leaders embracing the loyalty differently, because it should be
yeah.
embraced differently. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a fundamental focus to identify, and I mentioned already, that leaders should understand that loyalty, again, I'll say it many, many times,
Yes,
is not a
please do.
program. So
No.
everybody says we want loyalty, and I say, well, what do you mean we want loyalty? We want a loyalty program. I say, but hang on a second. A program is a structure. It's a tool. It's
Yes.
a strategy to drive an outcome called loyalty. So first, let's get, I guess, naming right, because I know everyone uses it's almost the lazy way of saying loyalty programs. They say loyalty. And I know I'm very passionate about it, and I might turn a couple
Yes.
of people away, but that's the South African, and I'm sure, Debbie, you get that as
I
well.
get that. Yes.
So, yeah, the first of all, if we're talking about programs now, the actual formal overt structure, let's talk about loyalty programs. To answer your question, you really the shifts are that brands and businesses that I deal with, and clearly I'm lucky enough to deal with some, but not all, and not necessarily all the big ones. But I'm getting a sense that they're getting much more clear on the why a
Fantastic.
program. So
Right.
it's not a cost. In
No.
fact, another quick story for you and your listeners is that
Yes,
I was in
please.
a boardroom recently with a CEO asking me about loyalty programs, a very big business, and it wasn't a consulting gig yet, but they were sort of just picking my brain as something that bothers me. But that's for another topic for another time. Asking me about loyalty programs, and in the end, the CEO said, "Well, I guess it's a cost of doing business." To which I said, with all due respect, don't do it.
Right.
And there was dead
Right.
silence. Because if you see it as a cost and not a return on an asset, which is your customer and or
Yes.
your engagement and or your the people that fundamentally bring you the income, if you don't see it as a return on that investment and only as a
Mm,
cost, it won't last until Christmas.
no.
And
Agreed.
so the whole framing that I'm seeing a lot of is changing the mindset around it not being a cost, but being
Right.
an investment, and it's a return
Yes.
that you get. So back to you, what you said, there are investments in driving a program, but there's
Yes.
also outcomes. So there's revenue. And if you can get the
Mm,
measures right and you can measure the right things, and see the incremental behavior change of members within the
yes.
program over time, because it is a longer term strategy, then the return should be greater than the investment you're making. And if it's not, then you've got to really think about why you're doing it outside of money, because there
Mm,
are other
mm.
reasons. So the first shift I am seeing is a change in mindset and a change in the why, getting really
Good.
clear on why a program. To answer your
Mm,
question, I feel that, you said right in the beginning of this chat about acquisition versus retention and growth.
yes.
And there's a lot of discussion and debate. Should we just be acquiring customers all the time? And is it worth investing in retention and growth of existing? Well, I'm biased, and as you might have indicated
Yes.
at the beginning, that there are metrics to prove that retaining a customer is more valuable, but not all metrics are the same, and not all businesses and
Mm.
brands should rely on a program. I'm the first one to say not every business should have a program.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree with you with that. Yes, you don't necessarily need a loyalty program, but as long as you have your staff aligned internally
Uh,
as to what the company's purpose is, we go back to that purpose, and you've got your team that are trained up and they're passionate about your product, it should invariably result in a happy customer. And a customer that's going to speak about your business at that barbecue, at that dinner, when they're purchasing something next, they're going to think about your product. Absolutely. And that's loyalty, isn't it? I mean, that's without having to have the system. But yes. Oh, I'm glad you're seeing the shift then, Adam. That's very positive news because so often, especially when economically people tend to cull their marketing, can
yep.
tend to cull their training or any form of staff training and often forget about the customer. But actually, that's something else as well, actually, that I've also come across. And I don't know, I'm sure you have as well. I don't know. Whereas if you're speaking to a specific, let's just say a particular brand, and they often go, well, we are the only brand or the only let's just say like a casino, for example, because that's my background as well. We're the only casino in the area. There's no other competition. And you go, but there is because it's share of the wallet. So what else is happening that weekend? Is there a rugby match on? Is there, what else are people going to be spending their money on? Even Halloween that's just gone past. Are people going to be spending money on that? Yes, it's going to be share of the wallet. So it's going to be your product versus that. And I think that's what we often forget. It's always interesting for me in the beginning of the year when you look at calendars, you always know there's going to be specific days of the year,
Yep.
Mother's Day,
Yep.
what not. And yet people forget to look at those days when they're doing a launch or a product launch and that sort of thing for share of the wallet.
Mm,
And
mm.
understanding from the customer's perspective, actually, what is it the customer that's looking for? But yeah, that's also for another day, another conversation. And then Adam, just beyond points, building purpose-led leadership and that. What's the most common mistakes that you've come across, or mistakes that leaders have made around loyalty? When it comes to loyalty, obviously you don't need to mention any companies' names, but just what are some of the common mistakes that you've come across, just in general?
Okay, so back to the words, loyalty program specifically, not
Right.
loyalty as an outcome. The mistakes that I see is, well, it does start with alignment internally, the why and alignment. So
Yes.
not only is it the CEO must believe, as well as right across the C-suite, but right down to, as you said, the human beings that are at point of sale, and the team.
Mm.
So what's one of the problems is initially that I see is if they're not committed through people internally, already a crack in the wall to disaster. So alignment is, or misalignment is, if you're asking me on the negatives, is one of the problems I'm seeing. Clarity on objectives or why, and we spoke about goals, measures of success. But even one step higher, and interesting, you talked about purpose, but I'm a big believer that a brand has a mission, vision, values, and so on, and a purpose, but so the program should as well. And
Yes.
8 out of 10 brands and businesses that I work with don't. They don't. Only
Right.
2 out of 10 that I in my little quantitative study of my clients
Oh.
actually come and say, we've got a vision for our program. and they're few and far between. You can't find them on websites. You can't find them because they don't exist. And I think
Goodness.
that's a mistake. So
Right.
even in your casino
Absolutely.
days, when you
Yes.
were at your casino, did the loyalty rewards program have a vision?
Absolutely. So we always had a vision, and then it tied into the greater vision of the company. And then it
Fantastic. Yeah.
also tied into people's KPIs,
Yeah.
because we knew if the loyalty team, if we needed to separate it like that, and marketing, we were so reliant on the rest of the business achieving or making sure that the systems were in place or answerable, or the call center was in place. If we were lucky enough to have a call center in some of the areas, um, because each of it was like a cog in a wheel. So
Yeah.
each person in the company and each area, each department really formed part of the loyalty program. We didn't just see it as a marketing program,
Good.
but that did take a lot of I'm going to say training. That took a lot of converting internally, because it wasn't always the case.
Yeah.
Like I say, a lot of the steering committee and many companies I've worked for will just see it as a cost center and something. It's a grudge purchase. It's a grudge department, and it
Don't go the
really
grudge
shouldn't.
direction.
Yeah, because I mean, you're nothing without a customer. You have to have a customer. So, and you want your customers to speak about you. But again, you want your team, your staff to talk about you, because they're your first customer, really. But yeah, no, it has been interesting. But I'm glad that you're seeing a slight shift. So that's good. That's very, very
Yeah,
good.
it is a slight one, although there's room for improvement. And
Of
I think
course.
the another area of misfiring at the moment, I think, is all this data collection. Everyone's
Mm,
collecting data, and the data value benefit exchange, as I call it, it's got to be really clear and center as to what are you going to do with it, how are you going to use it, how are you
correct.
going to protect it, what's your security, what are your privacy principles. But
Correct.
fundamentally, programs fail because they don't have the data governance in place, or they see
Yes.
it as a little bit of a, oh, that's too hard. But you asked me
Mm,
the question on is where are programs potentially misfiring, is in
yes.
that data side as well, amongst many others. And I can't get past the fact that you've got to build a program proposition that suits the brand, the buying behavior, that that is not just points, perks, and birthdays. It's got to be
Yes.
greater than that.
Yes.
And I've got 9 currencies that I've helped brands build when they build their programs, and money is one of 9. There's 8 others.
Mm,
So yeah, those some of the reasons why programs fail, but any number of others. I'm sure you've been behind the tools and inside, so I'm sure you can give me some of your
yes.
war stories.
No, absolutely. Oh, well, Adam, do you want to just share some of the other 8? You don't have to, or
Yeah,
not.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Happy to quickly.
Thank
So
you.
think of it a little bit of a wheel, because it's like for
Yes.
me visually, it's the 9 currencies of collection that loyalty program members care about. And it starts right at the top with money, transactional, show me the money.
Mm-hmm.
Experiential, give me something
Mm-hmm.
that's worth an experience and a memory. The third is my new one, which is my joyalty moments of magic. So that's the old surprise and delight. So that's the third
Mm-hmm.
currency. Give me some joy in my life. The fourth one is about save me time, make my life easy. So, think about the loyalty program, saving time, not creating more hassle, but, giving me options to save time and make my life easy. I think that was 4. 5 is all about the show me you know me, about personalization. So use the
Right.
data I'm giving you. Use the data I'm giving you to make me feel special, to show me you know me. Tiering goes in there. Ego exclusivity goes in there. Then another big currency these days is choice. So give me a choice of rewards.
Mm-hmm.
So Debbie, don't tell me that my birthday is only $5. Give me $5 or 50 points. Give me choice of
Yes.
catalog. Choice
Yes.
currency is that one. And I've got 3 to go. Hopefully you remember them all, because I'm going to test you afterwards.
No,
You might
please
play the
don't test
recording
me.
back. It's okay.
Yes.
The
No,
the
go.
next one is community as a currency. So this
Yes.
is where you belong to a greater group who behind the program. Think of Harley Davidson Hogs Group. Just
Mm-hmm.
think of communities
Mm-hmm.
that belong to a wider loyalty program.
Right.
Then it's cause. Now, this is a really big one, which is similar to purpose. So some programs give back to a cause, a charity, or to the
Yes.
local
Very good.
communities in a sense who need. So a cause currency. And the last one is also a new currency, which is called the data currency, which
Ah,
is use my data with respect.
yes,
Because so there's the 9. Hopefully you can play back and everyone will get them, but you can
absolutely.
sense that you've got plenty of opportunity when you're building a program.
Yeah, that's thorough. I love that. And what I also love is giving the choice. You mentioned one of them, and it was your fifth one, I think.
Yes.
The choice to the customer when it's their birthday. So, do you want points, or do you want to, or would you like a dollar amount off?
Yeah.
I love that because you're right. It shouldn't be a dictate, and it's 2025. It's all about choice. So, really, just give it to the customer. Oh, those are great. Yeah, what we'll do, Adam, is we'll put those into our we'll mention them in the bottom of the podcast. So those are fantastic.
Yeah,
Well, Adam,
your
and
audience can also, sorry,
yes,
Debbie, your audience can also get a copy of that in my free summary of my report for Love or Money 2025. So you can link them to the free summary, and in there
we'll
are the
do.
9 currencies. So there's a lot of utility there for your audience in the executive summary of my
Fantastic.
report.
Oh, wonderful. Thanks, Adam. I really appreciate that. So just in closing, in one sentence, I'm going to put you on the spot. Loyalty is what? And I think you've
Not a
covered
program.
quite a few yeah, but just in one sentence.
There it is. Loyalty is not a program. Loyalty is an outcome.
I love that. I love that. Thank you. So thank you so much for your insight. I've learned a lot. I knew I would do, and I know the listeners will as well. So I appreciate you being on the podcast, honestly, Adam. It was great. It was great to actually meet you one-on-one.
Yep.
And that's why, folks, Adam Posner is so well known as the customer loyalty and loyalty program specialist
Thank you.
across Australasia and beyond. So please visit Adam on LinkedIn or visit thepointofloyalty.com.au, and we will put all of this in the notes below. Thanks,
Debbie, it's
Adam.
been an absolute pleasure getting to know you as well.
If you enjoyed this conversation, follow along for more short, sharp interviews with inspiring leaders who are changing the way business is done. And if you would like my help in turning customer engagement into lasting growth, DM Growth on Instagram or visit the link in the bio.